Yo, man, we are live, man. I am the I am hyphen X, man. If you're watching this right now, go ahead and share this live for me right now. Go ahead and share this live for me. Man, we got a special one, man. We're winding down here in Black History Month. Thought it was just appropriate, man. I put out there that I wanted to have some certain people to come on the show, and we got Antar Baker going to be on here today, and we're talking about the miseducation of Black History, Black History Month. So gather around, man. Get your children, gather around. It's about to go down. Let me see if I can get in here. Hey, man, if you're watching this live, right, go ahead and drop a 1. Drop a 1 in the comment section below. Drop a 1 in the comment section below. If you're watching this live right now, we got Antar Baker going ready to come on, guys. I am hyphen next. This is the Great Conversation Podcast. Gather around, man. Share this live. If you're watching this live right now, go ahead and drop a 1 in the comments. And if you're watching this on the playback, man, go ahead and drop a number 2 in the comments for me. Share this live. We got Antar Baker coming on. Now, I didn't clear this one, Antar. But I look at Antar as one of our great historians here in this region. Very knowledgeable, passionate, dedicated, are just some of the words that come to mind when I think of Antar Baker. Tonight, we're going to be talking about the miseducation of Black History, of Black History Month. So let's just get to it. I am the I am hyphen X, and welcome to the Great Conversation Podcast, where we indulge in healthy dialogue about topics that are important in today's society and culture. We're coming on down here to the end of Black History Month, and I don't know how many celebrate, but I do know what is given for us to intake. There's a lot of Martin Luther King rhetoric. There's a lot of remember Rosa Parks, remember you were a slave. There's a lot of things that are told to us, brought to our remembrance very often by in Black History Month. Like I said, I have one of who I consider one of the great historians here in this region, very knowledgeable brother. I'm about to bring him on. I got Antar Baker here. What's up, bro?
Yo, peace.
Man, thanks for coming on, man. I've been wanting to get you on for quite some time now, man. I'm so happy we got the time and dates together, man. I'm very happy about that.
Oh yeah.
Go ahead and give everybody background on who you are and what you do real quick.
Okay. I'm just like you said, a person in the community trying to do the best that I can do to unite the study and research or scholarly type of things with action, which I think that we all are trying to do. Just a concerned citizen, just trying to do my part to add a strength to the collective effort for, liberation in Rockford and beyond.
Most definitely. You're not a. I'll say this about you, Antar. You're not a man of many words, but the words that you do speak are words that hold great importance. I find myself hearing your voice in the middle of a lot of storms. here in Rockford, and I commend you for that. And guys, if you're watching this right now, go ahead and share this live. Drop a 1 in the comment section, man. We're about to be talking about the education of Black History Month. Go ahead and share this. If you guys have any questions, we may get to those towards the end here. But I am about to sit back and enjoy what we have in store here. Let me bring it up here. Now, if you can tell us, Antar, the founding of Black History Month and its original purpose. Let's start there.
Okay. The founding, rather than starting with the founder, because the founder of Black History Month, Carter G. Woodson, people may be familiar with Carter G. Woodson, but it was an association of people that started Black History Month. And even beyond just the association that's credited with the founding of what was then Negro History Week, there was a climate in the 1920s in which Negro History Month Week could be born. There was a climate of historians, activists, and human rights activists that were striving for equality and justice in America. And so Carter G. Woodson, being the second African-American to graduate from Harvard with a PhD in history, he was able to do his part, which was a very significant part. So the purpose of what was then called Negro History Week is very important, and it's part of the reason why I wanted to join you and discuss this issue, because of the relevance to us locally in Rockford and beyond. So the purpose, one of the main purposes, was to disprove the undergirding lie and foundation for the justification of slavery and discrimination towards Black people in America. Let me try to repeat that, and we can use that as a measure and stick in a rubric when we think of how Black History Month is used and or celebrated. One of the main purposes was to disprove the lie that Black people or people of African descent that experienced slavery in America had no history that connected them to the human family. They had made no contributions to civilization. Remember, some of the justifications for chattel slavery in America, they said that people of African descent had no written language. Remember, we couldn't read or write. That was one of the myths or the lies. We had made no contribution to organized religion. We were paganistic, we were heathenistic, we were subhuman. And so Carter G. Woodson felt that these lies helped to perpetuate injustice in America, and around the world, helped to perpetuate discrimination. Now, I agree with him there, but I would also say that it wasn't just ignorance of our history that caused us to be discriminated against. It was also, for some people, that was the case, and others, envy. I would say it was envy. But at any rate,
let me unpack some of that. Because you gave a lot of information. Let me unpack some of that. So what you're saying, Antar, is that Black History Month was constructed to justify the inhumane ways that Blacks in America were treated.
No, I'm saying that Negro History Week, as it was called then, one of the main purposes was to refute or was to disprove those lies about African American history. Okay.
Yeah, so you're saying that the reason that it was implemented was to disprove the false narrative that blacks were subhuman.
Yes, that's a way,
Okay.
and specifically what's supposed to distinguish human beings from animals is reason, thought, and language, right? And reason, thought, language, philosophy, art, culture. So the lie was that we descended from a people that had none of that. In fact, slavery did us a favor. It rescued us from the jungles of Africa where we was just running around with bones in our nose, boiling each other, beating on drums with no clothes on.
Right.
So
Right. With
um,
face paint on.
yeah, so and that's why Carter G. Woodson, one of his quotes is, there would be no lynching if it didn't start in the classroom. And so he felt that the miseducation about our history and our true heritage was the basis of what was called lynching then. Now we call it, mob police brutality or police terrorism, where, lynch mobs, black people were killed or hung or uh, uh, prosecuted in the street instead of in a legal setting like a courtroom. And part of that, like I said, the justification for that was that we deserved it, right? I think there's a so-called conservative or Republican African Americans even now saying that we don't really deserve reparations because there's ample opportunities for us to make it in this society. We just have to, pull ourselves up by our own bootstraps, and that, slavery really did us a favor. So how could we possibly deserve reparations? But one of the main purposes, like I said, and there were other purposes that stem or other goals and objectives, but I would say that's a way to look at the main purpose.
Right. So the main purpose was to make society see that blacks were human and contributors to society. That
And
that's what
world
I'm
civilization, yes.
on civilization. Now let me ask the second question here. Let's just go right into it. So, how has Black History Month is currently being? How is it being used against us? How is Black
Okay,
History Month being used against us?
okay. Let me tell you a story. Um, when I was in college at Chicago State University, I had a Japanese professor for African American history. I mean, she was very knowledgeable, very good. Had studied under some of our great scholars, and she told the class that in Japan, amongst her people, they would say that they would never intermarry with a black or African outside of an Ethiopian.
Mm.
Okay, outside of Ethiopians, the Japanese didn't believe in intermarriage with any other black people. And the reason for that is she said that the Ethiopians are the only ones that resisted colonialism and slavery. The rest of us had no history of resistance to domination by others. And of course, she later found that not to be true. She became a historian and studied African and African American history. But I tell that story to say that many of the things that are being passed off as celebrations or activities for Black History Month do not counter that narrative. Okay,
Mm.
do not counter the narrative that we had no history before we were civilized by Europeans. In fact, Donald Trump so-called officially renamed Black History Month to African American History Month.
Oh,
And
I didn't get the memo on that.
yeah, it was very subtle, very, very slight, and he has some agreement within certain communities. But what that's saying is that we didn't start making history or having significant achievements until we were civilized in America, till we were Christianized in America. So if our Black History Month celebrations don't start before our enslavement in America or before 1619, and then I'm pretty sure that you know, and some of your listeners know, that African people have been in America before slavery, right? Before Columbus. We know that too. We there's evidence of that. But the basic point is that Carter G. Woodson in particular foreshadowed this. He specifically spoke that he didn't want this to happen to what was then called Negro History Week. He did not want us to strictly concentrate on the achievements of individuals. He specifically wanted us to dive deep into the history and story of Black people or African people in America, so that the greatness of our ancient past would be known, that the greatness of our ancestry would be known. Thus, and as you notice today, and we've all probably been guilty of it, I've been guilty of it too, we tend to have personality parades as Black History Month. And even worse than that, recently, a lot of people who don't know the history of Black History Month or its origins, like we talked before, you'll hear people say they gave us the shortest month of the year.
Yeah, shortest month.
Or, they gave us 1 month, and we should be celebrating our history year round, which is true. But it was self-determination of some very active and intelligent African Americans in the 1930s, the 1920s, that conceived Negro History Month. So they didn't give us anything. This was self-determination from some of our great freedom fighters and great elders. But now I think that because Carter G. Woodson saw Black history as a vehicle to eliminate discrimination and injustice, if it's not utilized or if it's not observed correctly, we could be doing the very opposite of what he meant. And back a little bit, his vision sort of was that Carter G. Woodson's vision for Negro History Week, ironically, is that it wouldn't be necessary for long. He never intended for us to have Black History Month. His goal was to distribute through high schools, elementary schools, churches, social clubs, fraternities, sororities, curriculums, lesson plan, media content, scripts for plays, and these things, to the point where the public was so inundated with the truth of our story, it wouldn't be a need. In fact, he was already pushing for Negro History Year. Okay, he was already pushing for Negro History Year. But like I said, right now, people, because I believe there's so much misinformation, and of course, everything gets commercialized and trivialized, right? From Christmas to Kwanzaa to Easter to what have you. We can say that it's watered down to a degree.
I would agree with you. I will agree with you there that it is watered down. And the way that I see that the Black History Month is currently being used against us is in that very fact right there, what you just said, the watered down version of everything. I sometimes catch myself. I'm like, why is it so much emphasis on keeping blacks in history secret? What is the fear of blacks knowing where their lineage comes from? Can you speak on that?
Well, like I said, with Carter G. Woodson saw that, even though I wouldn't say that just because we teach the world the truth about our history, then all of a sudden discrimination and racism will stop. Carter G. Woodson, he that was his vision. That was his vision, was with that the truth about our history and heritage and our nature would cause people to realize that they shouldn't discriminate against us. And to a certain degree, that's true. Let's say, for example, if you don't know who you are discriminating against or lynching, let's say, for example, you didn't know that you were lynching the Israelites, right? Wouldn't you feel better about lynching a heathen than you would about lynching a Israelite? Or let's look at the case of Tamir Rice. Okay, Tamir Rice, I believe he was 12 when he was killed by the police officer in Cleveland.
Right.
And so
yeah, he was
12. Part of the unspoken narrative or the unspoken justification for that was that, okay, the police officer said that he feared for his life, or he saw Tamir Rice as a threat. Okay, now Tamir Rice is a 12-year-old boy. Now in the human community, we can tell the difference between a 12-year-old boy and a grown man, if you're human.
right.
But I might not be able to tell the difference between a grown lion and a juvenile lion. Okay, so even within that, it was that racial narrative of our subhumanness. Okay, so that's why I said Carter G. Woodson thought by showing that and that's why I said, if you're not going back to the African continent when you're talking about Black history, and it's not okay for Pepsi, for Black History Month, to roll out their highest ranking employee as Black History Month, but they themselves don't know the history of their Black employee. They don't know, and that's the purpose, is to study the workforce for Pepsi. They still don't know the history of Black people, but they're promoting as Black history for their Black History Month celebration. They're publishing pictures of one of their employees. That's not what Black History Month is for. You have 11 other months to do that. People say a lot of times, well, it's the shortest month. Well, we definitely don't want to waste these 28 days on things that we could do, And part of the other part of George Carter G. Woodson's vision, or what he did himself with Black History Week. Black History Week is supposed to be a culmination of the research and deep study that you did all year. Okay.
Right.
So ideally in February, we're showcasing tremendous and excellent studies and displays and media content that we've been working on all year. We don't wait till February and then, how is publishing your Black employees, companies or entities publishing pictures of their Black employees, proving their humanity or proving the humanity of a race? Because Carter G. Woodson said that men don't make history, people make history. So that's the main thing, that it's not about individualistic achievements. In fact, Carter G. Woodson had that disagreement with his association back then. So that's why it's ironic. I would almost say, Brother Dinez, when you titled the show, The Miseducation of Black History, I thought about how you summed up everything, all of the subtitles in that title. And I thought about Lauryn Hill just going diamond, making history, going diamond with the hip hop classic, The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill, which is inspired by Carter G. Woodson's classic work, The Miseducation of the Negro. But I thought of another classic work, The Conspiracy to Destroy Black Boys. And it inspired me to say that I want to talk about the conspiracy to destroy Black History Month. And that conspiracy, you said why? What would be the point of it? And we've heard before, like if a man stands up, if someone's on your back and you stand up, they'll fall. Or the Bible says the truth shall set you free. So if you're trying to not set people free, which has been the history in America. We went from enslavement after Reconstruction. A lot of our rights were either denied or taken back. And then we had Jim Crow, and now we're still watching Black men be lynched on TV. And so we obviously the main goal of Black History Month, then Negro History Week, hasn't been accomplished because we're still struggling for equal rights and justice now. And like I said, you can't enslave or hold the people back when they truly know who they are.
Yeah, at all. I think that's very key. And like, I think that's what it is, Antar. Like once you like what you just said right there, like people knowing who they really are. So it's deliberate what happens, you know what I'm saying, during Black History Month in the public sector. Because I know, like, you know what, we're gonna wait for that. We're gonna wait for that. Let me go into this next part because you said something very key last segment about Ethiopia. So I just want to now just bring up, you know, Ethiopia and the missing link to Black history. Can you touch on that?
I will, and I'm going to give a reference. Maybe we can put this in the comment section later, but this book right here
Okay.
was written. This book is called. It is. Can you see it? Okay, yeah. It's
Yep.
actually. I didn't come up with that title. It's a book, Ethiopia and the Missing Link of African History by Sterling M. Means. It was published in 1945. That's why I said at that time there was a climate for the actual real study of our history. At that time, and that's why I said the conspiracy destroyed Black history. There's the concept of truncating history or cutting history off. For some reason, people in our community and Donald Trump, by calling it African American History Month, he wanted to truncate history. He wanted to cut us off from the Caribbean and cut us off from our African heritage, which gives us a majority numerically and also gives us a whole just a richness of heritage to draw from. But so Ethiopia, we were talking before, isn't it ironic, or do you find it strange that the only country in Africa that was never conquered or colonized by Europeans or outside forces is the country in Africa we talk about least?
Yeah. Yeah, very. We don't talk. Ethiopia is like, you don't even talk about it. It's been demonized as a poor country where there's starving children everywhere, and we just don't talk about it at all. But like you said, they're the missing link to Black history. It's like everything is there.
Yeah,
The Go ahead, go ahead.
yeah. And I was just going to say, um, we started off sort of talking about a negative thing, the Black History Month being misused, and there's a protagonist to the story. The protagonist, like I said, is there are some subjects. I'm giving examples of subjects that we can dive deeper into, because my goal and my vision of the response to this show, Brother Dinez, is that by this time next year, in the city of Rockford, we will have produced study projects, exhibits, um, books, essays. Because one of the things that Carter G. Woodson did for Black Negro History Week, he distributed curriculums throughout the United States for high schools, for elementary schools, for colleges. He didn't just talk. And so, I want to be motivated this way too. But he developed curriculums that teachers could
Mhm.
use, ready-made materials, so that by the time Black February came around, he had already distributed the materials, and the schools had time to prepare the whole year. You don't just start with your Black History Month program or whatever when February comes around. The best time to start is March. Okay, so as a community in Rockford, I'm hoping the vision is that from this we'll be inspired to go deeper and to study the purpose of Black History Month, study Carter G. Woodson a little more. maybe we can start to write and develop curriculums, because we have a fight possibly with this school system, because they are not teaching Black history the right way, or at all, or even according to what law has already mandated in the state of Illinois. And so we may have a fight on our hand. We may have a what you call a social justice reform movement that needs to start to get Black history widely distributed through the schools in Rockford. But Ethiopia being a point in case that shows it disputes all of the lies ever told about us. Ethiopia has one of the oldest written languages in the world with their own alphabet that's still in use today, Amharic. They have their own alphabet. You know, a lot of times we'll speak of an African language, let's say Swahili, but there's no alphabet. That those are still Latin letters that you use to write your Swahili words. However, the Ethiopians have one of the oldest written languages in the world. So where they got off saying that we didn't have in Africa, we didn't have written language, that's a lie. Ethiopia is one of the only places in the world where the true and authentic Islam, Judaism, and Christianity existed in peace at the same time. Ethiopia, they didn't get Islam from a secondary source. They got Islam from the lieutenants and followers of the Prophet Muhammad. They didn't get Christianity from Europeans or the ship to Jesus and those lies that are told. They received the Bible tells you when Ethiopia got Christianity. Is Acts, the book of Acts 8:26 through 40 describes the meeting of Philip with the Ethiopian eunuch. Mm-hmm. Not only that, and this goes to the other topic you probably bring up, but Ethiopia is also has been called the land of the Bible. Ethiopia and Egypt is mentioned more in the Bible than any other country. Okay, and Ethiopia also in 1892, I believe it was, the Battle of Ottawa was the first time that an African army defeated a modern European army. The Battle of Ottawa, when Menelik II and his queen Tiditu defeated the modern Italian. These are things that we should be studying. These things disprove every lie that's ever been told to justify Jim Crow, to justify mass incarceration, to justify all of these things. And so those are the type of projects that I want to see us looking into. And there's many other. It wasn't just East Africa. You had the Mali Empire. You had Timbuktu. A lot of people would be shocked to find out that cities in West Africa had sewage systems, indoor plumbing, streets. You know, it wasn't, the very opposite of what we have been taught is true about our history.
What do you think is the effect? I want to tell. What do you think will be the effect if Black History Month was more so a showcase of a collection of studies that were done throughout the course of the year by Black boys, by Black girls, by young Black men, by young Black women, by young Black adults? What will be what is the effect of knowing about Ethiopia? What is the effect about knowing about the Mali Empire? What is the effect of knowing about all these things that aren't taught to us traditionally in our American school system?
Okay, so I'm going to quote Carter G. Woodson here, and then I'm going to talk about some actual contemporary examples of what you're asking. So Carter G. Woodson said that not to know what one's race has done in former times is to continue always a child. Let me read that again. Not to know what one's race has done in former times is to continue always a child. Another quote that he from Carter G. Woodson: if a race has no history, if it has no worthwhile tradition, it becomes a negligible factor in the thought of the world, and it stands in danger of being exterminated. And that speaks to some of what Carter G. Woodson saw as the primary excuse used for lynching or murder. Remember the movie Birth of a Nation, right? In the movie Birth of a Nation, they had a savage black man chasing around, trying to rape white women. They used that to, and so to misrepresent someone's nature. Now, a more tangible example. Another elder I would like to bring up, Dr. Edward Robinson. Dr. Edward Robinson, he's a more contemporary. I would almost call him a forerunner, the forerunner of the legacy of Carter G. Woodson, because he took Carter G. Woodson's goals and aspirations for Black History Month to another level, and he showed and proved that Carter G. Woodson, in the city of Philadelphia, you guys can Google this, Dr. Edward Robinson led a campaign to have not just Black history, Black achievers, the person that made the ironing board and things like that, but to actually study the ancient history of the Mali Empire and Egypt. He developed a curriculum and he developed media content. It's still available. And they tested. They did a study. They took a certain amount of students and gave them Dr. Robinson's curriculum. They took another test group and they didn't give them Dr. Robinson's curriculum. Then they tested the students on just regular standardized tests. The students that have received Dr. Robinson's curriculum outperform the students in standardized tests in areas of math and science, things that had no direct correlation to the Black history curriculum or the African history curriculum. And so he proved in that research, and so he was able to get a large number of Philadelphia schools to take in his curriculum. They saw violence, they saw decreases in violence, decreases in suspensions, decreases in all self-destructive behaviors that are linked to self-hatred. And another thing that Dr. Robinson said that I want to answer the question with, he said that Dr. Robinson looked at the young people in Philadelphia, and you hear people say, well, we need to establish self-esteem in the children, or you hear people talk about self-esteem. He said that there is no self-esteem without race esteem, and he proved it. There is no self-esteem without race esteem. If the children are not, if they don't have, and the children they're starting to reveal this. The youth is interesting. I saw a trend. I don't know if it's a trend, how long it's been going on, but the young people are making fun of Black History Month. I saw a person put on Facebook, the first Black man to put cheese on hot Cheetos.
Yeah.
And you wonder, well, you could react and say, oh, they're acting ignorant, but really they're really saying that what they're learning is a joke, or what they're seeing in mainstream society being perpetuated for Black History Month, they're seeing it as a joke. And I believe that low that lack of race esteem, or I call it heritage insecurity. Heritage insecurity has caused some of our people to become the William O'Neill, that's the new, how people use Uncle Tom, or you remember the people start using Clarence Thomas. William O'Neill, that's the new word of the but there's William O'Neills in the academic field that are bent on preventing Black history from achieving its real goal. They're agents of truncating history, cutting history off at 1619, or cutting history off at slavery, or cutting history off at 1766, because they're insecure about their African heritage. They don't want to have anything to do with Africa. And there's Carter G. Woodson and others have pointed out and showed the reasons for that. But go ahead, brother.
No, why? Like once again, guys, man, this is Antar Baker, man. This man has a lot of knowledge, so I'm really sitting here picking his brain right now. I'm going off script and everything, because what do you think is the problem from generation to generation when it comes to Blacks in communication and advancement?
Well, like I said, I think that that because generations had been taught to hate themselves, or we have low race self-esteem, we can look at the different places that came from. Psychologically, there was a lot of things done to us during the enslavement period. I'll take a food example. So you've heard of cowpeas. Have you
Mm-hmm.
heard of the term cowpeas? That's used to
You say,
cowpeas.
uh-huh.
C O
I've heard, I've,
P.
I've never,
Yes,
I've heard of a cow and I've heard of peas, but I've never heard them together. I've never heard of
cowpeas.
peas.
Cowpeas. Yeah, cowpeas are black eyed peas, purple hull peas, pigeon
Oh,
peas,
okay.
and all of those are grouped under the term cowpeas, even though black eyed peas. But anyway, so these foods were foods that were brought over from Africa to America. Okay, and food is
Mm-hmm.
actually a anthropological tool that's used to study human cultures and things, and food can prove a lot about. You hear people say, "I ain't from Africa. I'm from I'm indigenous, or from I'm a Asiatic, or I'm this, that, and the other." Food can prove a lot of, besides just DNA, but there's a lot of African foods that are in the diet of Black people in America right now, and a lot of them came over during the time of enslavement. But back to the point, so cowpeas were one of those popular things. Purple hull peas, those are African foods that came over with the enslaved Africans, or sometimes the enslavers or the corporations brought them over to feed us in a cheap way, or to feed us things that we that kept our health optimum. But
Right.
anyway, so we didn't call them cowpeas. The slave master gave them the title cowpeas because he said anything from Africa wasn't fit for human consumption. So he started using our foods to feed cows. And the purpose of it was all psychological. Even now, you have Black people that won't touch a cowpea, and it was psychological, and that was done in almost everything. Anything that was of Africa had to be negative, and nothing of any significance either happened in Africa or was done by Africans. And many of us, like I said, have become William ONeills because we're running around pushing this narrative either unconsciously or consciously that nothing good, you right, if you think about it,
No, you
Islam
no, you
came.
absolutely right. You absolutely right because we know. Let's just keep it 1,000. That anytime we start speaking anything that has anything to do with Black nationalism, Black power, Black pride, it's shunned in our community. It's shunned, and you're ostracized, and you're labeled as weird and kept away from. You're not what the kids would say. You're not with the shits. You know what I'm saying? You're put away. You're put away, and no one wants to really hear what you have to say, or a very small collective, And I think that's one of the biggest things that hold us back is that we're waiting on all. We have this utopia mindset when it comes to Black people. Oh, once we all get along, then we can finally move forward. No other race thinks like that. It's when the right people come together for the common cause and decide to move forward together as a unit, as one. That's when things happen. That's when shit starts to shake, you know. And
And
I
that's
just
why
think,
I'm saying, not to cut you off. That's why
yeah,
I
go
told
ahead.
this. I'm sorry. That's why I told the story about the Japanese lady, because, and I like to tell people, you hear people say, "Well, ooh, I believe my son can become president now because of Barack Obama, or my daughter might be able to become president or vice president because of Kamala Harris." Those two people know their ancestral homeland. You are not invited to the table of brotherhood, and you think your name Leroy Jackson, because they know that you are crazy. You're not going to get your hand on the red button, and you think that your ancestral homeland is Detroit.
Right.
Barack Obama can tell you the exact village of his ancestral homeland. His name is not Leroy Jackson. His name is Barack
Obama.
Obama.
Yeah,
Kamala
he knows where
Harris,
you're from.
her father's from Jamaica. They don't play about their African heritage. Okay, you got some that worship the British and the crown, but you have a large amount of people that her father and the land of Marcus Garvey, those people know their ancestral homeland. And then her mother being from East India, there's no confusion there. And so you don't tell your child they can be the president because there's another person of color. No, that person has to have that sanity of knowing and being proud of their ancestral homeland. So so to the point that you were making.
So let's talk about that. You talk about having pride about your ancestral homeland. And then earlier we made reference to how Ethiopia and Egypt are the two most mentioned countries in the Bible. But yet they have been psychologically taken out of Africa and put as their own entity or some conglomerate of the Middle East. So the next question, what's next thing I want to go into here, and boom, there it is: the African history and cultural context of the Bible. Can you dive into that?
Yeah, basically the Bible is a history book that is written in and around Africa. And it's amazing how easily and how obvious it is. Okay, it's like amazing that. So, for example, cultural anthropologists. Let's bring up the animals in the Bible. Where else in the world do you find a lion?
Right,
The donkey
right,
is indigenous. The donkey is indigenous to Africa.
yeah,
The frankincense and myrrh is indigenous to Africa. The wood that was used to build the Ark of the Covenant is indigenous to Africa. Many of the instruments that's mentioned. All you gotta do is Google the origin, go through the Bible and write down the foods, the spices, the names of the trees, the names of all of these things, and then let's look at Moses. Let's look at the story of Moses. Even if you bought the story that Moses is not African. Let's say you took that, even though there's a map that I'll share in the comments too, where that shows you Israel, the land of modern day Israel, is physically connected to Egypt. Physically, in every story in the Bible where someone was trying to escape persecution, they went south. Moses. So the story of Moses takes place in Egypt. So
right.
even if the story of Moses takes place in Egypt, so that's another context, African context in the Bible. And like I said, the many mentions of Egypt and Ethiopia, or the cultural elements, the dress, many of the cultural norms that you will find that you have in common. I'll tell you another interesting story. Another interesting example in the Bible, right? When the Jesus disciples asked him, "Who will betray? Which one of us is going to betray you?" He told them, like, one of my own disciples is going to betray me, and they ask him, like, which one? How do you? And do you remember, or any people that read? He said, "Is the one that dips his hand in my bowl." Right? Does it not say
Mm-hmm.
that?
Yeah,
You go to any Ethiopian restaurant in the world right now, and you will see them eating that exact way.
yeah,
And
yeah.
and
That's
it's
definitely
thousands of
how they.
examples that the climate. They said Jesus wore the fine linen of Egypt. They cast just about everything. Even it was interesting, the story of the Israelites, the way they ended up in Egypt. The reason why they ended up in Egypt is because Egypt was the only nation of the region who had advanced agricultural techniques that can offset a drought. Every other place in the area was starving, but the Egyptians had grain.
Let me say this. Let me say this, Antarctica. We got some comments and we got some things in the comments I just kind of want to address. So I know a lot of people, you know, on your spiritual journeys and whatnot, you shed. There's a lot of things that you learn that you shed away. So you will shed away what you learn in the church. You will shed away what you learned in the mosque, and now you're on this whole spiritual journey where you're all about energy and you're all about nature and whatnot. Okay, that is great. That is great. But think about how far along you would have been in your journey if you were taught that the people in the Bible that they were forcing down your throat were of your lineage, were your type of people, that they were black people, people of color in the Bible. You know, and I'm talking about from the pharaohs to the slaves. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm talking all of it was a black story. So even if there's truth or if it's fiction to it, I would have loved to known that the characters look a little something like me. You know what I'm saying? And there's no harm in that. You know what I'm saying? There's no harm in that at all. So we're not. I'm not here to debate the accuracy of the Bible. I'm not here to talk about the existence of a Christ. I'm here to say that the characters of this story and the placement of this story happened where the beginning of man happened, and that's on the continent of Africa. And subconsciously, they were able to trick everyone into believing as a child that Egypt and Ethiopia was separate from Africa. We all
Yeah,
believed that
yeah,
at one point in time. We all believed it at one point in time.
yeah. Well, you know what they did, and
So
Marcus
it's
Garvey. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
no. Go ahead.
I was gonna say Marcus
Go
Garvey.
ahead.
Even when I was younger, I read a quote or some advice that Marcus Garvey gave, and when I first read it, even for a long time, I didn't really like it. Okay, but now as I'm starting to see more and more how relevant it is. Marcus Garvey said, anybody that has done anything important in the world in world civilization, paint them black. He said, anybody that has done anything important in world history, paint them black, even if you wrong. But it turned out that he was a lot of those people. But the point was, that's what Europeans did. So
That's
he was trying
exactly
to
what they
offset that. That's what Europeans did. And to that point where you talked about even the spiritual people who feel like that the way the Bible it comes across is Eurocentric in terms of the certain aspects. But remember, there's a sixth, seventh, eighth, and ninth, and 10th book of Moses, right? They call black magic. They say they those were cut out the Bible, right? But you can go get them from
okay.
mystic bookstores and stuff. But and because there's many books that really show the cultural continuity between many of the so-called pagan and heathen practices that they or spiritual practice that there is no contradiction between those spiritual practice that you speak of and most of the stories in the Bible. And there's a Jamaican saying, they say, they'll say, did man write the Bible, right? They'll ask you that question. Did a man write the Bible? And the answer is, of course, yes, right? A man wrote the Bible,
Mm-hmm.
or a person, a human being. So they would say, well, somebody's wrong, but not the Bible. The Bible didn't write itself. So you're going to find many, the apple. When you open up the Bible, and they got the picture of Adam with an apple straight from Oregon. It's like they didn't have no apples like that. They didn't have no apples like that in their area of the world. But the Bible didn't write that, or not even the ancient persons.
Right.
So you got those things, and I'm not saying those people are wrong, but you can't argue. It's indisputable that the donkey is African. It's indisputable that the lion is African. It's indisputable that many of the foods and many of the cultural practices that are, look at the Book of Proverbs, and right, the Book of Proverbs is almost identical to the Book of Ptah-hotep, the first book ever written. And some people, they take that, or you may have seen people that have put up the picture of Miriam, the Virgin Miriam, and the Christ child next to the Egyptian equivalent. Now, and then they'll say this is proof that they stole this. And that, to me, that is the most ridiculous. I can put up a picture of Kobe right next to Jordan doing the same identical move. That don't mean that that don't mean Kobe don't exist because Jordan did it first. Right. It makes no sense. These things are cultural patterns that's been going on for generations. You can't hold up something they did in ancient Ethiopia, ancient Nubia, and then say, well, because it's in the Bible, that means they stole it. That is. Well, actually, you could say they stole it, but human beings build on knowledge from generation to generation. Did Kobe steal his basketball style from Jordan? Did Jordan steal his basketball style from Dr. J? But that don't make the career of Michael Jordan false.
Right, that's true. That's true. That's absolutely. I like the way you put that. That's absolutely true. Like, I like the way you just brought up the Book of Proverbs, because we know that's a book of prosperity and whatnot. So like so I just want to bring this up right here. So like the African American legacy of freedom fighting and the Black History Month's relevance to future progress. Can you tie that together? Can you tie that together for us?
Yeah. So that would be another example of something that I think that we should be diving into year round to present as develop curriculums and media, movies, the power of Black Panther. A lot of people, I think we need to dive into that even more. Like, why did that movie impact people so deeply? Okay, yeah. It impacted people very deeply, but we as African people in America, or African Americans, our whole legacy and history is of being freedom fighters. If you go back to Akhenaten and Imhotep, Mayat, you go back to all of these people, and truth and justice and freedom, they was the cornerstone of their teachings, was the cornerstone of their philosophies. And so when we teach our children even about slavery, it should be we should be teaching them how our enslaved ancestors continued the legacy of freedom fighting all the way through the Haitian Revolution, through Nat Turner and Harriet Tubman, all the way up to contemporary times. You will find that and going up to the civil rights movement, a lot of people, we need to really study that a little deeper so that we can inform the things that we're doing now. Because one of the things people, and I talk about the rich legacy that African Americans have left the world in terms of being freedom fighters. The movement in the 1960s helped to liberate women, helped to liberate Native Americans on reservations, helped to liberate many people, benefited from that. So we should be proud of that legacy, and we should continue that legacy. And when we teach Black History Month, when we do make it to America, because like I said before, you can look at the study of Black history, like I think it starts on the continent of Africa and works its way through the Caribbean, all the way up through America. But when you do make it to America, make sure that it's a story of triumph. And I tell, and this goes into the last point, I think too. Our history and our story is a zillion dollar industry. A zillion dollar industry. One of the stories that Carter G. Woodson told in the book, The Miseducation of the Negro, he talked about a German journalist that came over to America to study American society. And one of the things that the German said was that one of the greatest tragedy of the modern world is that of Black people in America. One of the greatest, he said it makes Shakespeare look, he said it's the greatest tragedy. The way we triumph slavery is one of the greatest tragedies, but it's a matter of who's going to tell those stories. We see that now.
Right.
And I'm saying with Black History Month, how does Black History Month get used against us? Let's look at the 70s, right? In the 70s, coming off the freedom struggle of the 60s, the white power structure knew, or the exploitative power structure knew that the people were not going. We were studying our history. We were learning about who we were. Black was in. We had the picks. We had the afros. So what did the European do? He got in on the business. He set up his Black Afro businesses. In fact, he used a lot of Black people as fronts. William ONeill had an afro. In the 70s, you couldn't go nowhere without being pro-Black. You look at Shaft, but it was surface for a lot of people. And I think that's how we fell for the crack epidemic and the Jerry curls in the 80s, because it wasn't solid as it should have been. Like you look at Shaft and you look at blaxploitation films, for example. That should have been us making our own movies. And some of us did. You had Bill Cosby and some others that made movies. But the blaxploitation industry not only made money off Blackness, but distorted what Blackness was. Because even though Shaft had an afro and he was pro-Black, he was a cop. So, Foxy Brown was a cop. You wasn't actually all of the movies. The protagonist was always a cop. So it was messing. William ONeill was all over the place, dressed in pro-Black gear. But in another example I'll throw out is Vlad TV. I think Vlad TV really highlights the amount of interesting stories from our experience in America. This man sits there and interviews and talks to people, and he's sitting there. He's built a whole $1 million enterprise off of our stories. And I'm suggesting that we do that. We don't let the 70s happen to us again. We own our stories. We know it's one of the most important stories. It's one of the most. It's going to be one of the most sought after stories in the world. And you as a media person, I'm looking forward to when we start creating movies similar to the old school Kung Fu movies. The old school Kung Fu movies, the Chinese use those movies to propagate the contribution that they made to civilization, how rich their societies were and how rich their culture and heritage was. And that translates now into the Chinese people. You have Chinatown, you have you go to any Chinese restaurant, the menu is the same. They're able to pass that menu, that heritage on from generation to generation. I'm looking forward to us making some movies similar to Kung Fu movies that highlight the beauty and the grandeur of our African ancestors and our African past. The Battle of Ottawa would make a wonderful movie. As similar to the type of production of Black Panther.
Yeah, we have so many, like you said, we have so many different stories and whatnot, and everyone is capitalized off of the why not us? Why not capitalize off our own story? People are building these enterprises, and one of the main reasons that Great Conversation Podcast even exists is not only for my voice to be heard, but for others' voices like mine, and other voices can be heard as well. It's a platform for voices so that we can be heard. We have something to say, and we have a story to tell, and we need to control our narratives to the best of our ability. Antar, go ahead and let everybody know where they can find you, where you at, and whatnot.
Oh, okay. I'm on Facebook, of course, as myself, but I want to throw a plug out for a podcast that I also do with DJ Rock Noisy. We do the African Heritage Magazine podcast. It's been in hiatus because of COVID a little bit, but we're looking to bounce back and do a show pretty soon. And I'm going to cover more in depth some of the things that I brought up here as well. But you can find that page on Facebook. Follow it. It's called the African Heritage Magazine Podcast. The African Heritage Magazine Podcast. Also, you can. I want you to like my page, Farm Beta, Farm BETA Beta Productions. That's a African heritage food based program that I've been working on and trying to shape and shift to be what it's going to become. We deal with urban agriculture, and we deal with some youth violence and prevention type of things, but we wrap it all in the African heritage and helping our community with what I call heritage insecurity. You hear about food insecurity, you hear about economic insecurity, and those things are all real and significant, but heritage insecurity, according to some of our top scholars and ancestors, is the major problem that we need to fix.
And I agree with that, man. That just opened up everything for another hour right there, because because we don't. So let me ask this question. I usually don't. I only ask this. Would you say you have Black pride? Are you proud to be Black?
Well, I'm gonna say this, not to be difficult, but I envision where the terms black and white are no longer in use.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a proud African. Okay, I'm a proud African.
We'll take
I'll
that.
say that.
We'll take that. We'll take that. We'll we'll take that.
I have no
Hey,
shame in the negative connotations around black. That's not the issue. It's just that there's no scientific or academic base behind black and white. It's a silly thing, and really, those terms actually empower white people more. White people have more power from those colors being used as names than we do, because if they didn't use the word white, they would have to classify themselves as Italian, German, Russian, or whatever, and they would be a minority. As an Italian, you are a minority in America, but they consolidated their power under the term white. We could eliminate most of their power by abolishing the use of those words. No, you don't hear people yelling out, where the yellow people at? Or you really only hear black and white. Sometimes you hear brown and these, but when you think about it, that makes no logical sense. You calling human beings the red people, and come on now. We gotta, and we are genius people, and we've taken black and championed it. They meant to use it as harm, and we were able to unearth ancient meanings, and it's the solar system. It absorbs light, and all of that is true. But there's no landmass. We've all heard that before. Our power base is wrapped in our I'm gonna say our Pan-African strength. You will hear a lot of people say, we talked about this before, I'm more into Malcolm X than I am into Dr. King. Right. But Malcolm X's last work was the creation of the Organization of African American Unity. And the goal was to organize Pan-African unity to take the case of black people, for lack of a better, black people or people of African descent, to take their case to the World Court of Justice. Many of the people that will throw Malcolm X as an alternative to Dr. King, they don't deal with that aspect, the most important aspect of his work. And that organization is still in existence, but we have a power base that we need to tap into, and that is Pan-African unity. We have over 100 presidents, black or presidents of African descent throughout the world. Maybe 45 presidents on the continent of Africa, and over 10 to 15 presidents, black presidents in the Caribbean, and that are government officials over major economies. And if we will come together in unity, we have a power base that is almost unmatched.
Yeah, we need that. We need those right people to come together so that the appropriate changes can be made and executed with precision and not just emotion. Hey,
I gotta
Antar,
plug
I
this
appreciate
battery
you
in.
coming on, man. Oh, go ahead, man. About to go ahead and cut it here. If anybody right now, man, I'm gonna drop the link. If anybody wants to come in and talk, you can. I'm gonna see where I can drop the link at now. Hold on. If anybody want to hop on here, let me see real quick. You got time, bro?
Yes, I'm interested. I can't see any dialogue. I need to become a little more tech savvy so I can multitask when I'm on these Zooms or these
All right, let me see. I'm gonna drop it in the comments. I got it over in the watch party. I just dropped it right here. Boom. All right, so we got them in a couple different places, man. I'm all over the place. I'm gonna pin it over here in mine. If you're in the watch party, if you guys want to hop on, you can. I got the yep, and we got it on YouTube, and we also got it over here on the Great Conversation page. All right, so if you guys want to hop on, all you got to do is click on that link, and I'll bring you live. Or if you guys have any questions, you guys have to forgive me, man. I'm in the process of getting new glasses, so it's hard for me to read a lot of these comments on here. So it's probably best if you had a question or anything, just to come on live right now and ask your question so that we can get it answered. Because I'm gonna have to read these later. I'm not gonna have my phone up to my face on live. So
Oh,
that's if
one thing I
anybody.
wanted to show you too, DC, while you're waiting.
Go ahead.
This
Go ahead,
right
bro.
here is original high school textbook published by Carter G. Woodson in the 1930s. Just so people know that I'm not lying on a man's legacy. It's called the Story of the Negro Retold. And as I said, the point, a lot of things people try to start their study of Black history in America. When you open up the book, and I can put this in the comments, I would read the table of contents, but the first thing he starts with is Africa.
Move it over. Move it. Yep. Yep. There you go.
You see it? This is the
Yep.
father of Black History Month. And that's why I said we've abandoned this, and in so doing, we've helped the people who tried to say we didn't have a history before they taught. They even say we may have created the blues and jazz, but it was because of our existence in America that those art forms came to be, and so we have to make sure we start before our
Before the
colonialism.
slavery.
Yeah, and colonialism.
Like, all right, I got Dominic Castleman L about to hop on here with us, bro. Hold on, here we go. Boom. What's up, bro?
Hey, what's up, man? How y'all doing? How you doing, brother?
Good. How you doing?
All right. Hey, I want to first of all, what's up, X? How you doing? First of all, I'd like to commend you, man. For
Hey, man.
Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I want to commend you. I want to commend you for all the diligent study hours you put in, and it comes out in what you know. And I can tell that you burnt that midnight oil to free yourself with the right history, and I want to commend you for taking the time out of your life to find the truth out about our people. And I was making the statements on it. And also, this is a great show, X. I really appreciate allowing me to be on, say what I have to say tonight. And because a lot of our people, first of all, in that area, they want to tap into the surface of things. And you got to go really deep into our history. You understand? So you can be released. And another thing that you were saying, our people have been psychologically dealt with from optics, far as whitewash. What has happened is we have such an illustrious history where where it goes, where we don't even have the birthright to, we don't even have a birth date to our history. That's how far it is. And in saying that, we've been whitewashed, meaning that there's other people who play in our position. You understand? And you can see it in movies. You can see it because what that does is give these other people actually a history. And until we pause that and expose that, and it's been around forever, from Jesus all the way to Charleston Heston playing Moses on the Ten Commandments. You know, and that's real effective to the mindset of the masses who don't do no studying, because most people most people don't actually study. They pick up what they see more or less than getting into the truth about the matter of history. So therefore, you'll show Charleston Heston on TV and put him in Kemet, and then that's a form of whitewashing and taking your history out the way and putting themselves. If you pay attention to TV, anytime they talking about Kemet, which is Egypt, anytime they talking about Egypt or showing a movie about Egypt, they gonna put another race of people playing the Pharaoh or playing, and all that's miseducation. You understand what I'm saying? That's a form of miseducation.
Right, and not to cut you off, and when you ask of what about Revelations 1:14 through 15, that gives the description of Jesus as having woolly hair and feet like bronze being burned in a furnace.
Right.
Then you hear, well, what does color matter? Like, well, you the one that put up the the image with the opposite features as what Revelations 1:14 through 15 tell us.
Yeah, well, color matters when you playing a dominant role. You know, it matters then when you playing a dominant role, it matters. You know, because a lot of our people are actually, what you say, X?
No, I see that somebody has said in the comments that race was not created for people of color. You know what I'm saying? It was not to their advantage. And to go off what Antar said not too long ago, he just said that if we were to stop using these these categories, then it would force the white people to be in their categories and show that they're the true minorities of the planet. Since I have y'all on here, let me ask y'all. So, what do y'all think would be? What is the key? What is the key of us moving forward? What's the key?
Well, one of it ain't just one problem. It's a fathom of issues, but one main key is like, since we're dealing with our brother G Woodson, if I'm not mistaken, is one of the most imposing statements that he made in that book that caught my attention. Damn near when I was 14, he said, I'd rather be uneducated than miseducated. And what that meant was, I'd rather be uneducated than misguided. It's dangerous when you're misguided. And that's the trouble that all of our people are in. We're being misguided. You understand what I'm saying? So therefore it's more or less like we're being led by our noses, you know, or our emotions, or our feelings, or our taste, touch. So therefore we're not and see, I was once like that. And the only way I dug myself out of it is like, that's why I commend you, brother, for your and another thing I wanted to say that I said in the statement, see, we need brothers like yourself to teach our children. It's dangerous when you give your children to another people and let them teach them, because that's a continuation of subjugation. If you educate the mind of an individual, you can control everything else about that individual. So we need to enforce brothers, you know, a power structure to get brothers like yourself, you know, to change the mindset of our children.
That's real talk.
You know.
And I just wanted to the brother Dominique, before you get off, I meant to say that if I didn't say it. That's one of the things that Carter G. Woodson stresses, that the deep study of our history, not the surface study, not just the single achievements. That's great, but let's go deeper. And I'm putting a call out for action steps. You know, I didn't just come on here to talk about the problem or say negative things about what is the word, reactionary. about what other people are doing. I have some proposals that we either form study groups or other organizations. We take different aspects of our history and commit to studying it with the goal of producing materials, curriculums, lesson plans that will go into schools, and also with contemporary with the times. We know that Illinois just made history with the first state to make cash bail illegal, to make cash bail, the new police reform bill. But that is interesting because Rockford in particular, there's been a bit of a freedom movement developing here that's been pretty powerful. And I think that what could really help us right now is the establishment of freedom schools. Right, the freedom schools from the 1960s. We would have to study them because some have popped up here and there that we're not fulfilling, or we're not doing what the original freedom schools were doing. Black history was one of the key components of what they taught at the freedom schools. They also gave them political, civic education. It taught them basic, reading and writing but the Black history was one of the key components to the freedom schools. How many freedom schools? Always said, I love Rockford. Rockford, the community in Rockford deserves a lot of credit for charity. We do a lot of, we come together to pass out book bags. We come together to pass out lunches. We come together, and that's great. That you can't hate on love now.
Yeah.
However, can we come together to get these curriculums together? Can we come together to get these lesson plans? Can we come together to feed the mind as much as we come together to feed the body, which is important because they're not going to listen to you if they're hungry. So that's important work. But because man doesn't live by bread alone. We know that. So can we come together to like the brother said, these power structures, instead of the city of Rockford publishing who they think or the achievements of some of our great people, which are great achievements. You got all year to publish people that work in your office that's Black and how they was the first person to do accounting in your office. You got all year to do that. But for February, how about you force your school system to follow state law in regards to teaching true, authentic Black history? And let the community, we'll develop think tanks to tell you who the teacher should be, what books you should choose, what curriculums you should choose. Let us come together. So by this time next year, Brother X, before we come on this show, so like they said, it's not just intellectual masturbation. We need to put some work in starting in March. Mm-hmm. So when we come back around next year, we have action steps or we've done some things that we're going to put on display. Me, myself, I volunteer. I'm working on a couple displays on Ethiopia and the ancient history of Ethiopia to be able to present large displays for the people, along with some other things. But that's some things anybody that wants to help or have other ideas, other study subjects, and it doesn't have to just be about Africa now. We got some things, we got some great, like I said, that's why I brought up the freedom fighters. Those stories have to be told to our children. I told you this, Brother X, I hated to see Black History Month come around when I was younger. I hated to see it. I felt that the kids was laughing at us because they was, the stuff that they was telling us, we might take one Negro spiritual song and practice it for 3 weeks. And, we didn't learn the history of Negro spirituals now. We didn't know, we just, just a volunteer. But yeah, brother, I don't want to hog that.
Just a song. Go ahead, Dominic.
Hey, I'm in full agreement. I'm in full agreement with you, and I'm with you, bro. And like this podcast that's X, that X got going on right now. These are ways and means, because you don't need no permission to have your own. When you start asking for things and begging for things, you asking for permission to have. We need to, we as a people need to stop asking for permission to do what we're doing now. This is a way, because this is called broadcasting. And we know how broadcasting reaches out. I wouldn't be on here tonight if it wasn't up my alley and supporting this brother like he support me and we support each other, because I know for a fact, if you don't change the mindset, you don't change. If you can't change the mindset, you can't change your life. You understand what I'm saying? You have to change the mind of a man or a woman, because if your mindset is still stuck and subjugated and through the narrative of someone else writing your life, that's dangerous. All these things are dangerous, because when someone controls your narrative, and that's why I give a big ups to you, X, and other brothers like yourself and myself, because this has got to be pushed. If we looking for any kind, you used the word earlier called force. You know, yeah, some things have to be done like that, especially when the dire need of us, of our people and our children being annihilated. We can't keep on, negotiating with something that ain't gonna negotiate back. So I think you're doing I commend you, brothers, man, because this is what we doing. We taking what they call new technology. You understand? Now what we have to do is support each other. You understand? We so gone where we don't know the importance of what's happening at this moment. We active right now, because what we're talking about, what we trying to do is expose something to you. Because I know once I find out that I'm being played on, because I know for a fact, don't nobody like to be played on, right? And if you can find out where you're being played on at, then a light bulb might go off like, hold on, I don't like this, because a lot of people don't know what's going on. You understand? So
yeah, once you find out that you're being played on, somebody gonna find out that I ain't supposed to be played with. You hear me? So like,
believe that. So
that's just how it go.
Yeah, so I enjoyed this show, and hey, I support you, brother. Anybody pushing this narrative, pushing their own narrative, because it has to be done at that point. You can't. Sometimes we'll try to go to Z when we need to start at A, because then the conditions we have to be honest with ourselves. We're in some bad conditions in the mind. You know what I mean? So the mind has to be changed.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you gotta, as a man, think of in his heart he is. You know what I'm saying? So we have. Yeah, you're right. You have the renewing of the mind, the renewing of. But that comes with the ones who have the message or the medicine to cure the nation. It's about our approach too. You know what I'm saying? We have to be approachable. You know what I'm saying? We have to be approachable, and we have to be understanding that at one point in time, that was you. At one point in time, that was you. And you know how hard it was. It may not have been hard for you to accept, but the optics of accepting knowledge and whatnot, because we do know that one thing is for sure, that ignorance is bliss. You know what I'm saying? Because I remember when I was walking around just ignorant as I know what, good time.
That's
perfect. Everything was good.
Let me say something on what you just said. That's how you become effective, when you always put yourself in the equation, just like you just said. So sometimes we'll get 2% worth of knowledge and forget that we forget where we came from, and that's what makes us effective.
Yeah.
And one more thing, and one more thing. We all have positions and offices to hold. If you pay attention to the government, you can learn a lot from the government. They got different offices that people are personally qualified to take care of. And we need to start dealing like that. We need to hold our posts in different offices, but for the same directive. You know what I mean? Like for instance, quote unquote, the Minister of Education. That's what I would put you at myself. That's the minister, and this is your slot. And then minister or whatever, quote unquote, of broadcasting. We need to play our position, because a lot of times we play out our position. You understand? And the reason we do that, because here we are again with the mind. The reason we do that, we play out our position, is because everybody want to sit at the head of the table, even if you don't qualify. How can you qualify?
Yeah, I feel you on that.
Yeah, how can you qualify and you ain't even read a book?
Right, at all. You don't. Where do your qualifications stem from? Like, I understand that it's all about everybody playing their position. You know what I'm saying? Everybody. That's why I love basketball so much. Everybody has to play their position. You know what I'm saying? In order for the team to be successful. Yes, you may be able to achieve visual glory, but for the team to be successful, everyone has to do their part on that court. You know what I'm saying? Setting that screen, calling out that block, you know what I'm saying? Help out D, you know what I'm saying?
Sir.
Like, everybody has to do their part, man. I Hey, I want to thank both of y'all for hopping on here with me, man. We about to go ahead and wrap it up, man.
All
Hey,
right.
guys, catch us on Spotify, catch us on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts now, guys. The Great Conversation Podcast. And don't forget that on Tuesdays, guys, Tuesdays at around 10:15ish, we have our sidebar conversations live here on Facebook and YouTube. Okay. So we're looking for whispers from you, our guests. So, guys, go ahead and just hit us in the comments, or you can email us at the Great Conversation Let's Talk at gmail.com, or you can hit us right here at Great Conversation Let's Talk here on Facebook. Guys, we're everywhere. We're on TikTok. We're on Instagram. We're everywhere, man. So wherever your social media fix is, man, that's where we're at. Okay. All right. So hey, y'all, Antar's gonna be dropping some of those books and links and stuff in the comments later on. So please on the lookout for that. I am the I am -X, and always remember, you don't always have to agree to have a great conversation. Peace.